families with a severe or permanent disability. And just going back to Mark's question, the real importance of the National Disability Insurance Scheme is that it has a thorough assessment process. That's where the insurance part of the scheme comes from. The way in which we assess the degree of impairment, if you like, the degree of severe disability is critical to how funds are spent. And I'd certainly like to reassure all Australians that the utmost rigour will be applied in this process. That is terribly important, always to see that there is value for money and that the money goes absolutely where it needs to go. And really that was at the core of the recommendations of the Productivity Commission, the process started by Bill Shorten, who put a lot of work into this as well. And I would urge people who are now looking again at what's been going on here to go back and see the very early work that was put in, which is the foundation of the scheme. And I guess the thing that really changed for me and the Prime Minister was, as we worked our way through this issue, was to think about how do we set this down for the future? How do we make sure that there's a degree of certainty that people have craved in this area? I mean, anyone who knows an elderly couple, such as Jenny was talking about before, who live around the corner, knows that the thing that worries them if they've got a family member is what happens when they're not here. And what the National Disability Insurance Scheme is all about is answering that question, but it takes a substantial amount of time to get it up and running. And as you do that, you've got to have the policy rigour at the core of it.
And just on the legislation, this is to start on the 1st of July 2014, so the legislation can be dealt with in the next Parliament. Australians will have an opportunity to make a choice in September this year.
I can give you all of the detail later, so we'll get a little scrum up the back and just go through it. But in terms of the amount raised, $20 billion between 2014-15 and 2018-19. Now, of course, the money will come in early when expenditure is low, but it remains in the fund so that when the fund gets to, if you like, critical mass, when the scheme gets to critical mass in 18-19, we'll then start drawing down those funds to support the very extensive activities which are ramping up. You may not be aware, and Jenny can talk to you about this, but the trials are starting now. They're informing of how we go about constructing the scheme. But the aim is to have the scheme fully operational in 18-19. So monies will build up in the fund, then they will be drawn down as it becomes fully operational. In terms of the Commonwealth, yes, it's $3 billion in the first year. But in terms of the Commonwealth, this will fund, as you go out past the full operational stage, about 60% of our additional expenditure. In terms of the states, I can tell you over a 10-year period what they would get out of the fund. New South Wales, $3.2 billion, Victoria, $2.3 billion, Queensland, $1.9 billion, Western Australia, $976, South Australia, $727, Tasmania, $216, ACT, $192, Northern Territory, $92. All of this detail will be available later, but it is really important that you understand that the fund builds up. The scheme is in its early stages, and then the monies are there as the scheme becomes more mature and fully operational.
Well, this can be dealt with in the next Parliament. There is time. Obviously, we will see what the responses are in the Parliament as to what people's dispositions are on the legislation, but I anticipate that this legislation will need to be dealt with in the next Parliament.
Is that because of a lack of certainty of cost benefits and support?
Oh, it's a commitment we are making to the Australian people, and the Australian people get an opportunity to have a say on it.
Is there a danger that the raising expectations of the vulnerable group of the community when it starts next year, they're still in a phase of having pilot programs, force their business roll out for a long time. You're obviously going to have very tight conditions about who is allowed in and who is allowed out. Is there a danger that a lot of families are going to think they're going to get a lot of help quickly from this scheme? They might have to delay it.
Well, I'll turn to Jenny, but let me just make some comments too. I mean, we have been crystal clear with people all along that this was going to take some time to build. We've worked hard to accelerate the period that the Productivity Commission identified. But the Productivity Commission itself said this is a huge thing to do, just the same way Medicare was a huge Labor initiative. This is a huge change for our nation, and it will take some time to build. We decided to get started a year earlier than the Productivity Commission recommended because we were so keen to get a start. And then we've been very clear with people that there will be launch sites and we will learn things from those launch sites. The one here in Victoria, which will show us how it works in a regional area. The one in New South Wales, which will also show us how it works in a regional area. The one in South Australia that shows us how it works for children. The one in Tasmania that shows us how it works for young people, adolescents becoming adults in that time in their lives where, like children generally, they want to start making some more of their own decisions and have their parents make less for them, and they want to exercise more independence. How does the scheme work then? Obviously, the ACT is a discrete jurisdiction we can learn things from too. And now we've entered an arrangement with the Northern Territory to learn some things about remote service delivery. So we've always said we'd do the launch sites, we'd learn from the launch sites, and then we would move into the ramp-up of the scheme. So there's nothing the government's ever done other than be very clear with people about the time frames here. As Jenny says, the legislation's gone through the Parliament, which defines some of the eligibility questions that you go to. So there's, words of law for people to look at about how the scheme's going to work. So there are good sources of information around, and I would urge people, and I'm very conscious that there are 410,000 people around the country who hang off every word when we talk about disability care. I would urge people and their families and carers to get the benefits of all that information. We'll just go to Jenny briefly.
Did you want to ask some other detail before I answer any more? You sure? You're dead right to concentrate on the issue of security, because for people with disability, they do want to know that this is coming. And as the Prime Minister has just outlined, for 20 jurisdictions. And that means by 2018-19, we will have delivered to all of the people with disability and their families in those states all of the things that disability care will deliver for them. We hope that we will get agreements with other jurisdictions shortly.
You're not going to legislate this before the election. That's a decision going to the election.
Well, it's the right decision for our nation's future, and that's why we're standing announcing it today, so people can judge it and weigh it. It's the same proposition that Labor fought for election after election because we were so bitterly opposed by the Liberals. It's the same proposition we fought for on Medicare, which is that we all contribute and we all share. That's what Medicare's about. That's what the Medicare levy is about. Now, in the modern age, of course, the Medicare levy does not pay for all of our Medicare or healthcare expenditure. But the fundamental principle of the Medicare levy is we all put in and we all take out because we all need, services in the community like GPs. We've all got an interest in how our hospitals are going. In accordance with that Labor principle that we fought for with Medicare, we are prepared to fight for this, for the principle that we all put in and we all share a risk that every Australian faces. And lots of people, particularly younger people, like to think that they're bulletproof, and that nothing bad is ever going to happen to them. But I think all of us, at the age in life many of us in this room are, all of us would know someone who had a child born into their family with a profound disability. We've seen many friends have healthy babies, and then there's the one friend who has a child with a disability, and it completely changes their life and their families' lives and their expectations about the future. I think we all know someone in our family or in our circle of friends who has got that dreadful diagnosis, whether it's Parkinson's or MS or one of the really debilitating diseases that can forever change someone's expectations about what it is to age and what the rest of their life is going to bring them. The kid that did something they thought was, fun and amusing at the time, diving off a pier into shallow water and ends up with an acquired brain injury that actually changes the rest of their lives and the rest of their families' lives. When any of us could face up to that, it's the